cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Welcome to Dave and Mickey's Shiny Side Out on WZZR. I'm Dave.
And I am Mickey.
Coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. It's home. This is freedomslips.com is home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room, and a place to get your merch. This is show number 464.
460 and 400. Holy moly, almost 500.
Yeah, we're getting there, huh? Who knew? Catch us on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. If you miss Solaris' show, well, you know, things happen, right? Don't worry. It's all good. Tonight, she had Teresa B. Dick talking about Philip K. Dick. That's his wife. And it's pretty awesome. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to log into the archives and I'm going to download her show so I can listen when I want. Because that's the kind of technology we're living in right now. And in fact, you can join Mick and I. We're in the chat room right now and you can discuss things with us while we're on air. But it doesn't cost very much to get into the archives, and there's a Patreon link now, and you can subscribe that way and contribute to the show. You can be a host and contribute that way, or you can even buy merchandise. And there's things you can just follow the instructions if you wish to make a donation to the station. There you go. Mackie and I live in Australia, and I ask that you do the same thing as we do, and this is respect the original, traditional custodians of the land where you live. And it's not just a blanket statement. We've got signs up where I live that says welcome to 𝐫𝐞𝐯
Nice, that's nice.
Land. This is where they live now. This is we've recognized their area where their mob, it's called a mob, where they live. Meki, where I live, you know where I live, so where do you live?
It's I'm in Pemulwuy, and my custodians are the Darug people.
Awesome.
Quite combative, I should say.
Really?
Fighting the English quite. Oh yeah, Pemulwuy was a warrior, and he lopped off the head of the gameskeeper for Governor Philip, I think, and he was executed for his troubles. But now we've named the suburb after him. Go figure.
Wow. Well, the greatest massacre in New South Wales took place just south of me by about 20 k's. And they were nicking down there during the night and picking them off while they slept. Extraordinary. They wake up. Well, they didn't wake up. If they had have woken up, they would have discovered they're all dead.
That's true. Interestingly enough, I live near a place called Constitution Hill.
I know where it is. Mm-hmm.
Right next to the third settlement in Australia. So there was Sydney, of course, the Cove, and then there was Parramatta.
Yes.
And then they settled Toongabbie, or near Toongabbie Creek. And Constitution is near there, and that was one of the largest battles that took place between the early colonists and the Indigenous people. And people to this day think that place is haunted. I myself have not experienced it, but anything's possible, I guess.
It isn't your house on an ancient burial ground?
Well, it sort of is, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And anyone living through the Midwest would also, in the US, where the battles may have taken place, there's a lot of ghosts and there's a lot of stories. But before we get to that, Meki and I do pay, while we joke around, we do pay our respects to elders past, present and future. And not in this broadcast is there any images of deceased persons. All right. So certainly not deceased, traditional custodians of the land here in Australia, which is actually a warning. It's a warning for those who wish not to see that. It's not a. Have you've noticed those words, Mickey? Those same words?
Absolutely.
In some broadcast, yes, because it's not in line with their beliefs to see images of the dead. So,
right.
Look, having said that, wow, news. Oh. So, I'm almost flabbergasted. So there's some good news, Meki, with the virus, and so the topics of news today is the virus, the vaccines, UFO, and some UFOs, and some military announcement by the US, and we'll see where that goes when we get to it. But having said that, the virus itself, it's 2.3 million currently deceased who were tested to have the virus, not saying it was the cause of death. There's 105 million cases globally, 3 million since last week, but we've actually gone down in the quantity of infected per week.
So, just before we go on, just a caveat, we have no idea how many people are getting infected or are infected. None. Zero. What we do know is how many people are infected that were tested.
That's right.
Okay, so we have no idea what the real numbers are. We also don't know how many people have died from it. Not really, because some deaths have incorrectly been attributed to this virus, while other deaths would never have been counted.
Because someone was at home asymptomatic, or they just had a heart attack, or they had a stroke, or...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing, Dave, here when it comes to the fatality rate is all the deaths that are related to the fact that the doctors or the medical establishment could not treat patients in acute need of help because they were overwhelmed with the
virus patients.
The virus patients,
mm-hmm.
right? So that's really
that's another death toll.
100%. No,
yes.
These people didn't die of the virus. They died because other people with the virus took up the hospital beds, and this is happening.
So they're not counted. Yep.
No, this is happening massively in India,
mm-hmm.
in Brazil. In fact, Manaus, the worst hit city. I think it's the biggest city within the Amazon basin in Brazil.
Yes,
it's experiencing another outbreak, which is, and I think I mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but scientists believe that 80% of people had
have the virus. Yes.
Okay, in Manaus.
Yeah.
That was the first spike, and there you go, boom, the wave gone. That seems to matter not at all, Dave. Not at all, because they're all sick again.
Mm-hmm.
Different strain, maybe. But see, this whole thing about herd immunity, it doesn't seem to work because
no, it's a complete fallacy.
Yeah, because scientists said, well, if Manaus is I guess the case that we should look at
mm-hmm.
as the general case of study, then herd immunity can never be achieved because we had reached an infection rate of 80% of the population, at which point herd immunity should kick in, but it didn't. It didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really bad news for people who want to stamp this thing out. So I say, if you're on an island, pull up your shutters, burn your bridges, right? Yeah. Don't let anyone in. And here in Australia, I'm really worried, Dave. We had some cases coming out of the Australian Open.
That's
these are
that's the new case. Right? Yeah, I've got a point in the news about that.
Yeah, no, I know you don't. I don't want to steal your thunder, but
no,
what really worries me is that in Australia we want to bring back more people from overseas. Now, these are Australians coming home, and ultimately, yes, they should come home, but they want to increase the rate at which people come home, and we know that 2 weeks in quarantine is not enough. I think we know that now. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, you got to be a moron not to understand this, and I'm really worried
because
for Australia.
you might have, even if you've got the virus, what happens?
Mm-hmm. Well,
after the 2 weeks, and say, oh, look, we're tested, and they're not, they haven't got symptoms. Well, they're still shedding the virus.
Yeah, they're still infectious.
Yeah. So, the global daily infections. Oh, by the way, Australia is completely insane for holding the tennis championships here.
Oh, it was nuts,
right? Because the person who brought it in was in. I'm just saying, it wasn't a tennis player, right? It was just a regular folk coming back. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And the person who working at the hotel was a security guard who just sat in the chair, the video camera, and didn't show them touching anything or do anything, just making sure that they stayed in their rooms on their shift, and then went home and tested positive for the new, 𝐸484K version of the virus. And it's in the air conditioning. the rooms don't have their own air conditioning, and air spills into the, under the door into the hallway, and it's more efficient than having an air conditioning per room, right? Mm-hmm. Common air, and there you go, right? So it's not difficult, and I think we have to reassess our quarantining processes. And if we were to build a dedicated quarantine center where every room had its own aircon, or the air itself, Mekki, imagine this, was treated with UV light in the ducts so that it was always clean. It didn't matter if you shared the air then. Yeah. And this is what I told you like a couple of weeks ago, that the Queensland firm is now doing that. They're providing UV light cleansed air, a segment of that, of the, the boxed air transmission tubes, right? The ventilation shafts. They've cut out a piece and you put UV treatment in there. That's it. It's pretty easy. Anyway, so the declining amount of infections, remember this is, mind you, tested only, not the true state of the virus in play. It's got to be stated, right? So just like, in Australia, they say, there's no community spread. How can you say that? No, what you've failed to test is the success of someone feeling ill enough and warranted to want to go get tested. So 80% of people are mostly asymptomatic, or just have a symptom they don't consider strong enough to get tested. Anyway, so go back to it. So the global daily infections are declining from 800,000 per day last week to 500,000 per day this week. The Northern Hemisphere winter is what I presume is the greatest direct cause of this. People are staying indoors, they're not going out. I think transmission rates might be lower as a factor, or people are just declining to get tested.
Yeah, I think people have got test fatigue, Dave. And I think
completely. How many tests have you had? I've had 3. I
have exactly none. My wife had 3.
Yeah.
But I've never had any symptoms. I wasn't even remotely sick.
Yeah.
But what really helps, though, and everybody out there, please, if you can get it, it's called kiwi herbs. It's a throat spray. It's got echinacea and other herbs. It's called kiwi herbs throat spray. Okay. And then the second thing you need to get is manuka honey, the highest potency you can get. I know it's expensive, but believe you me, it does work, right? It will fortify your immune system, and it will even, kill off a scratchy throat. So
I'm a bit of a traditionalist here, and I have vitamin C, because you need C to be able to have D.
Yep.
So I take D as well, and it's got to be converted by sunlight. So being in a lockdown is useless. You've got to go outside.
Yes.
And I do that, and I take zinc, because zinc is extremely important in being able to break the virus cycle in its replication cycle, right? Mm-hmm. So very important. Look, we're not doctors, right? Just going to put that out there. But this is what I found helps me. If it helps you, fantastic. Any of the traditional ways of being able to prevent a virus, staying healthy, the manuka honey absolutely is a good thing. I don't like honey, so Mekki's on his own with that, right?
Yeah.
I'm the only person in my family that considers any threat, right?
Yeah,
we know it's a threat, but there's very little exhibiting the effort required to, prevent, spread. Anyway,
so we've got some interesting conversations in the chat group now. We are reporting on what we know, and I know for a fact that my cousin's wife is sick with the virus in Germany. All right, so that's going up into the chat room. I also know that I have a lot of family and friends in the medical profession, both here in Australia and in America, nurses, doctors, etc. Right? This is mostly on the West Coast in the States, but here in Australia it's in Sydney. And people are sick, right? If it's not a virus, if it's not COVID-19, if it's not SARS-2, or SARS-CoV-2 rather, then what is it? People are dying and people are sick. And I would like for anyone to give me an alternative explanation as to what's happening. The effects are real enough, right? And whatever you can do to make your immune system better is a good thing in my opinion anyway. Okay, stay outside, go into the sun, eat vitamins. In my case, eat honey, manuka honey if you can. Any mineral supplement is good. Eat. See, the key thing, Dave, is really this: eat healthy, organic food, meat, whatever. Maybe vegetarian, okay, fine, but make sure it's healthy and it's full of chocolate block full of vitamins and minerals. So, I am not saying it is what it is, and I'm not saying what it isn't. I'm saying something is there, something's happening. People are dying a lot. Hospitals are overwhelmed a lot, and anyone denying that, in my opinion, is living under a rock. Okay, something is there.
You know, I'm not fighting anyone. You can believe what you want, to be honest, and that's the way I'll leave it. So there's the inspectors are out, Meki. The inspectors from the WHO in China. It's a China-led investigation there. They're not able to freely drive where they want. There's a schedule. It's been organised by China, and they're doing the rounds, which is interesting. And they're obviously there to look for the origin of the virus, but they're kind of limited in scope because they don't have free reign. It's not like a bunch of police investigators who are, have the keys to the city. So it's only there to support an outcome, but not broad enough for any other cause. Should anything that they find, which I doubt they would lead them in any other direction. There's no speaking with infected or the infected or any relatives of, and there's no investigation of the lab. It's records only. They're not there swabbing anything. They're there just to read through the records, and also with the wet market and the hospital records. So I looked at the schedule for them, and it's really not freelance work. It's all quite there. It's all predetermined. Kind of like when you have a royal commission, you know what the outcome is, so you give them the amount of teeth they need for that to be solved in that way. Like a survey, we want you to find this. We want you to look for this to find this. We don't want you to look anywhere else for anything else. Like I'll just say sugar versus fat. And for instance, so the consensus so far is that I can ascertain is that people are pleased that something is going on at least, Mackie. Like there's an investigation going on, and that makes them happy. That's where I'm going to stand on that. And but this is the most important bit, and this is the new strain named E484K. Because of the spike protein change, it may mean that the vaccine is less effective in providing your body's immune system with valid recognition. Asymptomatic transmission of the virus by vaccinated persons is still likely, says doctors, or say doctors, in most countries. And I've actually got a piece on the new virus, and this is on the bmj.com. It's intended for healthcare professionals to read. It's not a website people would go to. It's certainly not CNN, and it's not Fox. It is the real deal. And they talk about the numbers. And one of the things that I thought was extraordinary, it's also called B117 plus E484K. And that's the Ravinder Gupta at the University of Cambridge and colleagues have confirmed that the new B117 plus E484K variants substantially increases the amount of serum antibody needs to prevent infection of cells. So they're talking about having to increase the doses of the vaccines, and it says, will it work? Will the vaccines work against it? The recent clinical trials by Novavax and Johnson & Johnson showed that their new vaccines were less effective in South Africa compared with the US or the UK, which is presumably because of the high level of the virus carrying the E484K mutation. This is doctors talking. So I'm not saying this because you know what, Mecky, I got Facebook cross a black mark for saying something that Facebook fact checkers didn't like, and they can get knotted. And I argued that the article that they've removed that I posted was from a reputable mainstream media outlet, and they can suck it. So anyway, and you know what? I didn't even get a reply from the bot.
That's a shock. We do not talk to humans. Silence.
That's right. So it brings me to the vaccines, because I think the vaccines are everyone is crying out for them, and as Mecky and I have said a million times, that the world has a situation going, and the thing that we're kind of looking for to solve it, we immediately don't want it. Oh, I forgot a bit too on interferon. But in the end, we'll beg for it. That's the way it becomes presented to us. The problem is so dire that we'll beg them for the solution, even if it's not great for us, right? So interferon and the long COVID, Mickey, I knew you would love this bit, right? So the autoimmune disorders is where I'm going with this, because interferon is our own body's, I'll just read what I wrote. This is where your body's own mechanisms attack your body. Now, I had a disease named Writer's disease that did the same thing. It's a thing, and it started eating the cartilage in my hip. And lucky I was treated for that, and it went away, which is great. There's no return visits of that one. But it seems that the longer that you have SARS-CoV-2 virus, the more interferon you have, and the more damage you will then get as a result. So they've found all the people being treated in their medical studies, and I've got videos and this is doctors talking about this once again, and they're saying that the people who had the virus the longest and were treated or being treated, not those who are asymptomatic and seem to skip through it, but those who were that delved a little deeper into the virus and had longevity in their body, being a miscreant, they noticed that they had increased proportionally amounts of this interferon. And if anyone has an autoimmune disorder, you know what I'm talking about, lupus and a whole bunch of others.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so it seems the longer you have it, the worse it gets. But the outcome can be found as these are the things that they're currently finding in people who have the long COVID diseases, where your body starts to be eaten by itself. Lung damage, other health issues like blood clots, skin discolorations, heart damage, and brain fade. Brain fade. Wow. And they're calling COVID now, it's biphasal. So there's the infection component, which your body can either win or lose. And if it loses, then there's this secondary long bout of troubles that you end up going through. So just for instance, there's a stomach bacteria that can end up causing heart damage. Wow. That's different to this. But as an example, right? Anyway, so let's go to the vaccines. In South Korea, Switzerland, Austria, and Germany, and other countries, they warn of elderly receiving the vaccine. And this is a different vaccine is named in each case. Predominantly, the AstraZeneca one is the one that says don't do it to over 65s. And ironically, Mecca, they're the people you want to protect the most, right? Because we're most vulnerable to it. Other countries like the US have suggested only having the first jab. If you experience any severe symptoms, don't get the second one. And that includes a severe reaction would include body rash, shortness of breath, or other anaphylactic responses that you might have. But they're saying any reaction, not just the swelling or soreness where you were injected, but if you have, if you profusely sweat, you have skin irritations, anything else that you should, this is what they're saying in the US, just don't get the second one. But now we're hearing that the 𝐸484K requires greater doses than what was being tested for the original variant of the virus. So we're splitting, Mickey. There's two groups: the people who are going to get, the vaccine for the weak version, and then we're all going to be parting ways, and all those, and the new virus strain's going to come through. It's going to be worse. So
yes, it is. Yeah,
right.
That's the problem, really, right?
Yeah, completely. So I'm being very careful here, and I've got all the stories on the screen. So German officials say that AstraZeneca vaccine should not be given to over 65s, for instance. But then, Meki, I found this interesting story that there is. Oh, by the way, here at Shiny Side Out, we expect our listeners to seek medical advice should they have any reactions to the vaccine at all. So we're not doctors, right? Just putting that out there. But there's something really interesting. The Celltrion vaccine that's come out of, guess where? South Korea. South Korea were the ones who were saying we should be very careful about the other vaccines, but they've actually got their own one. And this one is, it's currently undergoing phase 2 trials. But they say that you only need a single dose and you can store it between 2 and 5 degrees, which is a regular fridge. That's pretty good. So while it's still in secondary trials, I think we're going to hear more and more from this one. All of the governments of the world are having an issue with supply chain.
Yeah. Sorry, they've gone back to the old vaccine production methods, like the more traditional ones, which seems to bear out something. But yeah, supply chain issues, of course.
So whether it's the glass bottles or it's that countries with more money are upping the price of the vaccine or trying to get their one prioritized.
Never waste the good prices.
Absolutely. Right. And so I thought that was extraordinary. So where every country, I've been looking through the news, every country is complaining about their delivery date is sliding of the vaccine. And as it slides, they're going, why? Weren't we locked in? Oh, there's a priority client. Well, who's the priority client? I can't tell you, right? But there is one, and just hold on, you'll get it. Like we're about a month out. Wow, right. In Australia, we tried to avoid that by wanting to establish a whole AstraZeneca lab. And then I heard the Prime Minister talking about being able to then also not just do it for AstraZeneca, but for our other medicines. So remember how bring your industries back home? It's starting, and that's really interesting with that. But look, Mickey, outside of what I've said, right? It's just the virus and the vaccine. But this is going to be here for ages, right?
It's not going away ever.
Ever. I know.
No, it's not. Okay. Notwithstanding, some comments from the chat room, if it's on a hoax, it's not real, fair enough, right? But then the fiction of it is not going away. Think of this as the activities that took place after 9/11. Mm-hmm. Specifically, the invasion of Afghanistan, the subsequent invasion of Iraq, and the bases, or I guess in the stands in Central Asia, the American bases that were deployed there. And then it turned into the long war. Who are we fighting now, right? I mean, we fought ISIS for a while. We're still fighting someone. Someone is fighting. So, and so it morphed into the long war, and it based on completely false premises. Mm-hmm. There was no underground bunkers in the mountains in Afghanistan that could be found, and the Taliban could be smoked out, or the Al Qaeda network. No, that just didn't happen. Saddam Hussein didn't have weapons of mass destruction. That was also wrong. Okay, so those were complete and fabricated hoaxes. That's the truth, right? Now, but it doesn't matter. millions of people died anyway. Okay? Because action was undertaken, things happened. This is the same. Whether or not there is a virus killing people or not, people are dying of something. People are dying because they not medical help or care. People are dying of something, right? Whatever it is. And that's the thing. Because again, I told you, I have contacts in the medical establishment, and people were terrified last year this time when this thing started to come to Australia. Terrified. Now we're in a better position. But whether or not it's a fake, it's a hoax, it doesn't exist, or something else that is being done here, the effects are real nonetheless. People are dying. Economies are crashing. Okay? People are losing their livelihoods. These are facts you can see. And this is the thing that we have to be extremely careful of and vigilant against. We can't just, it's a hoax. Well, okay, what does it mean though? You say that this is all a hoax. Okay, right, fine. Now what?
That's right.
Now what? Okay? Because the effects are real nonetheless, just like the Long War. The reason for it were complete hoaxes, but there we are. Millions of deaths later, right? We got between 12 and 14,000 people globally passing away of something extra. We won't know the real numbers until probably 3, 4, 5 years down the track when we're doing some number analysis. But something is going on, and something is stopping the global economy. Something is also moving wealth, Dave.
Yeah.
From the regular folk to the billionaires.
It's just going straight up the chain.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
100%.
And
100%.
the reiteration, I have to say, of the dip in China's population by 5 million on uptake of mobile phone services. Let me explain. So in 2018, there was 120 million new phones issued to Chinese in China alone. And then in 2019, there was 90 million. And in 2020, there was a loss of 5 million registered phone accounts. And I'm not sure what makes that number up. I'd guessed it when we called this out, I think in July last year, that it might be just all of those, temporary accounts and people, the visitors, everyone going there. You can't use, I don't know if you can use your own phone, but you're probably better off using just a disposable. And maybe it's that, but there are people calling that the 5 million, the drop, because there was no increase in phone sales and there was no demand, and as such, a loss. You could count it, if you drew a line, a graph, you could actually see that there wasn't an increase in mobile phone accounts. There was a loss of, say, 75 million when I drew the lines, right? And because of every year there's an amount of new accounts, net new accounts, and a loss of 5 million is quite an extraordinary amount. Now, does that mean anything? Could it mean a third of those were, impacted by the virus? Or it was that they couldn't pay their accounts, just simply alive and well, but couldn't pay their accounts, or a portion left the country anyway. That would make sense. Visitors weren't coming, right? There's a whole. It's made up of a bunch of vectors, but in there has got to be more than the current total of Chinese deaths listed as 100,000. So I'm thinking that maybe that might be a vector of truth in there somewhere, but I think we're going to have to, as Mecca said, wait and see the true numbers coming around. Salty. The true number of people, cause of death, whether it is you got turned away from hospital and died on the front stairs and were never tested for COVID, right? Whether you couldn't go to hospital, or whether you just thought everything's going to be fine and you died at home and weren't tested. All of these different things, whether you had a more serious illness and couldn't be tested, all of those things are really important. to recognize. And now the long COVID issue, where these extra symptoms, Meki, that we've spoken about, can still cause death later as your body still continues to eat itself.
Well, that's right. And some of these symptoms, not all of them, but it was very striking resemblance to Morgellons disease, which again is termed a non-disease. People don't believe it exists. It's the one that has these fibers growing in your body under the skin and coming out as well. People have no explanation for what it is, but the symptoms, extreme fatigue, etc., are very similar to what people are experiencing here. With the long COVID. Long COVID, you might survive whatever is making you sick, but the fatigue and I guess it's just chronic pain as well, right? Organ damage. It's a worry. It really is a worry.
But look, onto something that's sort of a bit more my freeway, Mickey, my lane. I love this. It's like the fast lane, and that is UFOs. I'm seeing a huge uptick in the media reports of, and not just YouTube, right, but media reports on UFOs and sightings seem to be coming back again. And I think I might have found the cause, and that is that in the first couple of days, I think it was around January 11th, an instruction went to the US intelligence agencies, and they've got 6 months, 180 days it is, for all of the information they have on UFOs to be released. Yeah, it'll be redacted as hell. And it might have an annex, a security annex, which won't be released. And I've downloaded the last full release. But this is a new command. It's come from the US government. And apparently it's going to be a big one. This is the big release. Everybody in the UFO community is talking about it. It's a thing. Oh, I've got my middle screen. There we go, middle screen. So there it says, therefore, the committee directs the DNI, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense and heads of such other agencies as Director and Secretary, jointly consider relevant to submit a report within 180 days of the date of enactment, which is the 11th of January, to the Congressional Intelligence and Armed Services Committee on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, also known as anomalous aerial vehicles, including observed airborne objects that have not been identified. Wow.
100%. There's a renewed interest generally in the media as well as entertainment. I spoke about the Skinwalker Ranch documentary, which the second season hasn't started yet, but if you haven't seen it, I urge you all to take a look. It's not the Bigelow investigation, it's the investigation that took place in 2020, end of 2019, beginning of 2020, so just if you can get a hold of it, do. The other one, which surprised me significantly, to a great degree, was another documentary series I've started watching. And Dave, if you haven't, I'm sure you will soon. And this was a UFO Witness, I think it's called. And it's essentially this son, or this son of a pilot, but he's also a pilot himself. He flies a helicopter in the thing when he does the investigations, and he had his own experience, right? And it's called, I had it here somewhere. I don't want to lie to you guys, but I can't recall now what the actual thing is called. But it is definitely something that you have to see. And they're going back they went to Kecksburg and interviewed the last surviving people from Kecksburg, right, around the Kecksburg UFO. And he's done a few other things. He spoke to the last surviving a member of Project Blue Book. It's a lady, and she was working on Project Blue Book for the US government. And the things she has to say are quite astounding, Dave. Is this the year of... I thought 2020 was going to be the year of disclosure. I really did.
Yeah, me too.
But I do believe that disclosure is imminent. And what do you mean? What is disclosure? Disclosure is the admission. And I think we had disclosure, Dave. I think we had disclosure to some extent when TikTok was
the
released.
Tic Tac, yep.
And they said, look, Yeah, we have no idea what it is. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's right. They spoke to the radar operator in the first episode, who actually was on the Nimitz when TikTok happened. He was the actual person on the radar. And you know what the crazy thing is? He said it wasn't investigated. The people came in, they took all the recordings, all the back then was like hard disk, floppy drives, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was it. Never talk about it again. The captain didn't want to talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody. So if you haven't seen it, I think it's called UFO Witness. Do go ahead and I think 3 episodes have come out. I was quite taken by the style, and I was quite taken by whom they had talked to. These are the kind of people you want to talk to. Again, the guy who was he was the radar operator on the Nimitz, who actually spotted the TikTok thing, right?
Tic-tac.
Tic-tac.
Like the lolly.
yeah, like the lozenge. And then the last surviving member of Project Blue Book, the lady that they talked to. And then the last surviving members, last surviving inhabitants of Kecksburg, where they found the Kecksburg UFO. So it is, something is shifting, Dave.
Look,
something is shifting.
I agree. So I think then this is, I try to talk to people rationally about this, right? And it's difficult, right? And I have to say that the tic-tac is certainly a thing. And the US Navy, Mickey, it's kind of a segue, but I'll get back to it, is declaring that they have technology that can change reality. And that's I'll put the news story up in a sec. But we do live in a universe full of life. And if you currently don't agree with me when I say that, how will you feel when it's announced? It's a pretty fair question. And I've been doing that to people recently. Will you remember the amount of resistance that you used to deflect the idea of aliens? And question why it was that you wouldn't accept it. And that's what I want the people to realize. Realize the moment when I ask them that and they still resist, and how much effort they put in. Because is it breaking their home, shops and work triangle to have to consider it? I think so. But when the tic-tac thing happened, all of the people that I know all went, yay, that's the thing. I kind of expected it. I kind of expected it to always be true. It's almost like they'd always known.
But see, it's also there's a psychological component to it as well, Dave. And this is it. It is a powerful thing to be part of a group, and that says, "Oh yeah, we are right and you're wrong." That's a powerful.
Yeah, completely.
Right. So if I'm in the bunker. You're a crazy person with a tinfoil hat seeing UFOs. You clearly. Look at me. I'm a solid citizen. You know, it gives you psychological power.
Remember how I was wrong, Mickey?
You know, but this is the thing, and you just jump on the bandwagon. Oh, if they're saying it's bogus, but a lot of people, but the government used to say, no, it's nothing here. Oh, well, the government said there's nothing here. 9/11, the government would never do this. Oh, well, I guess the government would never do this. And you can throw Operation Northwoods at them. You can throw tic-tac.
Good one.
Tic-tac at them, right? You can do whatever you like. It doesn't matter, because the opinion and the inherited opinion has been firmly established. It's very hard to form new neural pathways after a certain age. That's just a fact. It's just how it is. Very hard. That saying, teaching an old dog new tricks. I mean, that's folksy, but it's true.
Neuroplasticity is a thing, but you've really got to work at it.
You do.
And if it means that you don't feel comfortable, remember, uncomfortable discussion is another phrase that I've adopted. Yeah. So, yeah, completely. But this is it, Maggie. So all of this tech, right, that has clearly been visible by our own people on Earth. And when I say our own people, these are humans witnessing something that doesn't have regular flight characteristics, well, there's something. I've got
Sorry,
something.
it's called UFO Witness. Sorry, it's funny. UFO
Oh,
Witness.
is that the show? Cool.
Yeah.
Everyone should watch it, and you
There
can
you go.
send me a link.
Yes.
The US military have now come out and said that they've got, this is the headline, US Navy controls inventions that claim to change fabric of reality.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, I got the article open. It's very interesting. That guy, I mean, just popped out of nowhere, didn't he?
Yeah, completely. So, Dr. Salvatore Pace is the one. He's got a bunch of patents out there, and there's a whole bunch of good information in there, which I ask. He's talking about creating a quantum vacuum around something that you can potentially fly in the air, that around itself with a very dense polarized energy field. This vacuum would allow it to repel any molecule the craft comes in contact with, no matter the medium. He's also talking about like shields as well, and some fusion reactors, ultra fast craft with no air resistance, extraordinary stuff.
Now, what he's talking about, what he says here is, if the vacuum creating technology can be engineered, so if this can be engineered, we'd also be able to engineer the fabric of our reality at the most fundamental level, states the patent. Now, the most fundamental level is the quantum level. So this is quantum engineering they're getting into here. So, which is very interesting.
It could include teleporting.
Anything,
I know.
really.
And I mean, remember that if you pull the destination to you while you hold on to where you are, as space-time, like a blanket, right? Like a fitted sheet. You hold on to it, you grasp it in one hand, and you pull where you want to go to, and it happens to be the other end of the mattress. If you could pull it up to your face, then let go of where you were, you would now be at the destination. Does it make sense? As you bent the mattress around you and then let go, the mattress spring would propel you, and the mattress would form its original shape again, and you'd be connected to your destination point. That's the way that I imagine the crafts to get around. And so from an observer's point of view, we just see them dart across the sky unimaginably fast, and if we were to do it, we'd all be liquefied inside because of the G-forces. However, if you haven't actually effectively moved at all, but space has moved, then you don't feel any of those. And you can only imagine this is how the whole thing would work. But Meki, the reason why I pulled this story up wasn't just because of our, at the bumper we say, fabulous inventions and new things in technology. It's because is this something, and it's actually mentioned in here. It says, as investigated and reported by the War Zone, a possible reason why some of the patents may have been taken on by the Navy is that the Chinese military might also be developing similar advanced gadgets. Who's been to the moon, Meki?
Well, that's a very trick question.
It's kind of rhetorical. Both countries.
Yes, of course.
The US have been there in person, and China's been there by rover. So
we think.
Does that automatically get you a seat at the table?
Maybe. That means India should be getting a seat pretty soon.
Remember their nuclear weapon test that surprised the entire planet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I could see them flying Vimanas, Maggie, over my house. And you go, hey, that looks like a Vimana. That does. Yeah, so I can only imagine if they were to surprise us like they did with the nukes, they're going to be off. They're just the whole of India will just go, look, we're off. We're going into space. We're going to travel the universe. Good luck.
Yeah, well, we don't need you anymore, thank you. But look, they've already.
However, they didn't kind of successfully land on the moon that last time, so.
But Vimanas are. I mean, there's the stories that that they found Vimanas in the caves in Afghanistan, right? So.
With an active field around it, yeah.
Yeah, amongst other things. That makes sense to me. Perfect sense. All right, and make no mistake, the people that built the wilderness are not the same Indians that we have today.
No.
They're not the same folk, right? There are very few continuous populations, with the exception of Australia. But even in Australia, we had 3 or 4 settlement waves of Aboriginal settlers, not whitey. Right? So we're talking about thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. The people that were then, look at the artwork, is what I say, and then you will know who lived there. Right? That's really the most important thing to understand. And it was a very diverse cultures in the olden times. You had Africans, you had Europeans, Asians, they're all happily together in South America there.
And Cambodians.
Oh, absolutely.
The Cambodians, that region of the world, they weren't Cambodians, but they were living in the place we now know as Cambodia.
Yeah.
Their architecture, their stonemasonry is the same as, well, that's funny, the same as Peru, Bolivia, and it's the same as Egypt, and it's the same as, is it Turkey?
Yes.
Is it what? How is that even possible? Oh, that's right. Yes, there was a whole another global culture at the time.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That's really where all of this is leading, right? I mean, we're playing at understanding these things. We don't have no idea. We don't understand anything. We think we do, but in reality, no. But thanks for playing, though.
Next.
Well, yeah, essentially. But see, that's why we're having this whole virus thing. Even if it's not a virus, that's why it's now. Because we're reaching that level of understanding again. And this is the time to cut us down again.
Do you know what, Mickey? I want the Great Reset. Be damned, I don't care anymore.
Don't give up. Don't be a giver-upper.
I'm not giving up. I'm supporting it. Even though I kind of liked what we had, when we kind of emerge from this, I think it's going to be a different place. I think.
Oh, completely.
Kind of? Yeah, completely. Right? I'm trying to be nice, and I'm kind of at acceptance already.
Okay. You want to know what the future looks like? It's a boot. No, I'm not going there. Not 1984. No. I'm going to call it now. This is going to go on for a long time, and we will not be prepared for what's around the corner. Not the preppers, not the non-preppers, not anyone. The way the world is going to shift is going to take us completely by surprise. And I mean, if you want to prep, that's fine, but prepping won't save us. It didn't save the iterations of us 15,000 years ago.
Yeah, 14,000 years ago. Yeah, no, it didn't save us then.
40 or 50,000 years or 100,000 or whenever those things lasting. Each of them. It didn't save. I mean, survivors, yes. Carry forward of knowledge, very little, and only by the elite. Well, that should give you something to think, right?
Don't bother etching the shape of an iPhone into a rock. It'll just be a square.
Oh, it must be some kind of religious artifact.
We found them everywhere.
Yes.
Hey, that's the end of the first hour. We're going to come back with a show topic straight after this. And the show topic, I'm going to put a teaser in, the electric universe. So hang on, and we'll see you shortly.